This House is now in session. Minutes of the meeting held on Tuesday, 12 March 2019 and Wednesday, 20th of March 2019.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that the minutes of the meeting held on Tuesday, 12 March 2019 be confirmed, and that the minutes of the meeting held on Wednesday, 20th of March 2019 be deferred.
The question is that the minutes of the meeting held on Tuesday, 12th of March 2019 be confirmed, and the minutes of the meeting held on Wednesday, 20th of March 2019 to be deferred. All those honourable members in favour, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Meeting, the ayes have it. The minutes of the meeting held on 12th March 2019 are confirmed, and minutes of the meeting held on Wednesday, 20th March 2019 are deferred.
Announcements by Your Honour. Messages from Her Excellency the Governor-General. Petitions. Papers.
Mr. Speaker, I am commanded to lay the financial statements of the Board of Management of the St. George Secondary School for the years ended March 31st, 2007 to March 31st, 2012.
Government notices.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to give notice of the Constitution Amendment Bill 2019, Constitution Amendment Bill 2019, and the Bail Amendment Bill 2019.
Notices of questions. Reports from select committees. First reading of bills.
Honourable for St. Joseph.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that the Constitution Amendment Bill 2019 be read the first time.
The question is that the aforementioned bill be read a first time. All those honourable members in favour, please say aye.
Nigel,
Those against, please say no. Meeting, the ayes have it.
Speaker, I beg to move that a second Constitution Amendment Bill, which would be numbered in due course of 2019, be read a first time.
The question is that the aforementioned bill be read a first time. All those honourable members in favour, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Meeting, the ayes have it.
Speaker, I beg to move that the Bail Amendment Bill 2019 be read a first time.
The question is that the aforementioned bill be read a first time. All those honourable members in favour, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Meeting, the ayes have it.
Nigel, let's do the
congratulatory and obituary speeches, personal explanations, motions for leave of absence, or replies to questions, notice of motions for the adjournment of the House on matters of urgent public importance, orders of the day.
No change.
Honourable member for City of Bridgetown.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move the suspension of Standing Orders 6, 16, 18, 20, 42.5, 43, 44, and 56 for the remainder of the day's sitting, and also the withdrawal of bills of orders number 5 and number 9 to be replaced by orders number 15 and number 16.
Question is that the aforementioned standing order be suspended for the remainder of the day's sitting. All those honorable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Meeting the ayes have it. The aforementioned standing orders are so suspended.
Government business, sir.
Government business is now the order of the day.
And we're withdrawing orders number 5 and 9. Okay. Withdrawal of the order. Withdrawal of the order.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move the withdrawal of bills of orders number 5 and 9 to be replaced by orders number 15 and 16.
Question is that the aforementioned bills of 5 and 9 be withdrawn and replaced by 15 and 16. All those honorable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Meeting the ayes have it. The aforementioned bills 5 and 9 are withdrawn and replaced by 15 and 16.
Sir. In the name of the Honourable Attorney General and Minister of Legal Affairs, to move the second reading of the Bail Amendment Bill 2019.
Honourable Member for St. Joseph.
Mr. Speaker, the matter of bail in Barbados has caused some concern and consternation, especially over the past few years. I believe, sir, that before I get into the substance of it, it would be important for me to indicate to this honourable chamber the kind of landscape that we are now presented with, which has determined that we take this particular course of action to amend the Bail Act. Mr. Speaker, so the first question is what brings us here today? There's no doubt, sir, that the number of homicides, the number of murders that has taken place in Barbados since the year began is unprecedented in our history over the same period. We are now, Mr. Speaker, at 20 murders so far for the year. And in some instances, sir, these murders, they didn't take place evenly spaced over the last 3 months. In some weeks we've had, in some very narrow periods of time, you've had 3 over a period of 48 hours and the like. And therefore, Parliament is obliged to look at it from 2 sides. Are we doing enough to quell this apparent, this spate of crimes? And are we doing enough by way of proactive measures? Now, I've said repeatedly that we're not going to turn around in a period of 10 months the massive increase in violent crime and firearm crime that has been nurtured, perhaps unintentionally so, over the last 10 years. We would be fooling ourselves, sir, if we felt that in the space of 10 months we could overturn 10 years of decline and neglect. Perhaps it might be useful if I gave this chamber a number of statistics to demonstrate the movement in the figures in relation to murder, and especially in relation to firearm caused murder over the last 30 years. During the decade 1989 to 1998, and Mr. Speaker, I'd like to remind the chamber that I shared these figures with Parliament and the wider Barbados during the estimates debate, but it bears repeating now. During the decade of 1989 to 1998, we had 184 homicides. In that 10-year period, 89 to 98, 184 homicides. But of those homicides, only 42 were caused by firearms. Only 42. And you know, sir, any death is a tragic one, and any death by firearm is one that particularly endangers our society. But how many of us would be willing to admit that you almost preferred 42 to the numbers that we have today? In the subsequent decade, Mr. Speaker, and that decade is 1999 to 2008, there were a total of 267 homicides, and in that period, 101 were caused by firearms. 101, sir. In the decade ending last year, we had a marginal decline in the number of homicides, 260. But, Mr. Speaker, 140 of those homicides, more than half, sir, were caused by firearms. So that demonstrates clearly two things, I believe: that there's been a gradual increase in the number of firearms each year, but particularly worrisome is the association, there's been a gradual increase in the number of murders, but particularly worrisome, sir, is the direct association between those murders and the use of firearms. We go from 40 out of 180 to 142, sir, out of 140 out of 260. This increase in the use of firearms is replicated when you look at the general firearm statistics that have been compiled. Between the year 2010 and 2017, in that period, that 7-year period, there were 2,908 victims of firearm-related crimes. 2,908, sir, just shy of 3,000 Barbadians and perhaps some visitors who were victims of firearm-related crimes. And during that period, sir, 1,836 persons were arrested and charged with firearm-related crimes. Now, Mr. Speaker, it doesn't take a lot of imagination to be able to say to the public that firearms have become the scourge of modern-day Barbadian existence. Plain and simple. We could put icing on it. We could do all kinds of things to decorate it. But the bald truth, sir, is that it has become the scourge of our modern-day existence and threatens to unwound all of the achievements that we've made as a nation over the last 50 years, and in particular, sir, all of the economic and other advances that we have made in recent time, and especially over the last 10 months. Now, let us look at what has brought us here today. Of the 20 murders for this year, 12 were gun-related, sir, more than half. 12 were gun-related. And of that 12 gun-related homicides, 10, I am advised by the members of the Royal Barbados Police Force, were in the nature of reprisals. That is, gang-on-gang warfare. But, Mr. Speaker, let me urge the members of the Barbadian public not to take that little kernel of information and draw any comfort from it. There are some people who like to view the crime situation as a us and them. It doesn't happen in my neighborhood. I am not at risk. It is gang-related. They're reprisals. So as long as I am not involved in that kind of activity, I can go to sleep safely at night. That's not the case, sir. Because there are a number of disturbing things that have been happening. We are seeing, sir, a callousness in the individuals who are committing these crimes. How does a person who might live in one of the fancy areas of our country but happens to like Quapova, how does that person feel that their enjoyment of the festival could not be interrupted when only 2 years ago, sir, we had people running through Spring Garden shooting indiscriminately and with wanton regard for what else could be happening? Sir, when we looked at the recent event, Sheraton Centre, sir, a situation where an individual goes into a public place in the middle of the day, people are carrying about their ordinary business, some recreational, some commercial, and indiscriminately fires off a weapon. Mr. Speaker, that should tell you, that should tell every Barbadian, that there is no longer any reason behind thinking that we are in some kind of a cocoon and that it can't affect us. Mr. Speaker, in this context, we now have to ask, what is our response? But before I tell you about that response, sir, I think it's important to deal with the question of bail and what it has become. Mr. Speaker, in 1996, this Parliament passed a Bail Act which, for the first time, put the grant of bail on a statutory footing in Barbados. Now, we've never been fearful of embracing developments in law, nor have we ever been fearful in approaching these matters in an orderly fashion. And in 1996, when the Bail Act was passed, it provided that any defendant in a case could get bail in certain circumstances. Now, conventional wisdom over the years, conventional legal thinking over the years, was that a person accused of murder could not get bail. And even though the law was changed in 1996 to permit it, in fact, the first time that anybody applied for bail on a murder charge was in the year 2007. And that person, 11 years later, sir, that person was granted bail, especially because of the fact that his trial had by then been delayed for 7 years. But, sir, that opened the proverbial Pandora's box. And while I do not criticize the judge in any way, very well regarded judicial officer of Barbados who has gone on to serve the region Court of Appeal judge in the Bahamas and elsewhere, and who continues to serve the region well, sir. Solid legal reasoning, but the problem is, sir, that when once that door was open, we couldn't get it shut back. And so, Mr. Speaker, over the years, and with increasing frequency, individuals charged with murder have been applying to our High Court and have been getting bail, sir. Permit me to share with you some of the recent statistics, and I'm only going to go back 4 years, in relation to the nature and the amount of bail applications that were granted in respect of, firstly, firearms, and secondly, murders. I'm setting the context, I hope. In the year 2016, sir, 33 bail applications were granted in respect of people who had firearm offenses. 33 people with firearm offenses applied for and got bail. Others may have applied too, but 33 got bail. And in that same year, sir, 7 murder accused were granted bail as well. 7. In 2017, we had 45 persons charged with firearm released on bail, and 6 people charged with murder. 6. In 2018, we had 38 people charged with firearm offenses released on bail, and in the same year, sir, 9 people charged with murder were also released on bail. And thus far for the year, at the same time, sir, that we have 12 gun-related homicides for the year, coincidentally, we have 12 people charged with firearm offenses being released on bail, and we have 4 persons charged with murder being released on bail. That is as at today, sir, the 2nd day of April 2019. Now, Mr. Speaker, I promise you that this is not to be a debate on statistics. But if anything, sir, there's a set of numbers that I think should really matter to our society, and should matter to our society more than the number of people who got bail and the number of people who got charged with this, sir. And those numbers, Mr. Speaker, are the ages of some of these young men. The ages, sir. The young man who was charged with the homicide in Sheraton Center 2 Thursdays ago, or I should say Thursday before last, he is 21 years old. He is 21 years old, sir. This same young man, charged with the murder in Sheraton Center, was out on bail for an earlier murder, sir. A murder which he was charged with committing this murder in the year 2015. 2015, sir. He was released on bail in August of last year. In August of last year, this young man was released on bail. And by March, barely 8 months later, charged with another shooting. He's 21, sir. The victim, in each case, one was 35, the other was 33. There's another individual, sir, who is currently on bail for 2 murders. 2. And at the time when he was charged for the first murder, he would have been about 22. And he was charged for his second murder in 2014. And as I said, he is out on bail, sir. There is another young man who charged with serious firearm offenses. He's 33. The young man who is charged with the homicide in St. George of February, sir, he is 19. There was another young man charged with multiple murders. He is 29. So those are the numbers that should worry the Barbadian society. Not people in their 50s who have lived most of their life already. Not a man in his 70s who says, well, I could do anything now because I ain't got much time left. Or young men, people who would have been in our secondary schools 5 or 6 years ago, people who might have been in our Sunday schools and in our primary schools less than a decade ago, sir. Those are the numbers that should be worrying us. Now, Mr. Speaker, the fact is that in many instances, these individuals come out of prison on bail and reoffend. So there are a number of individuals who are out on bail having been charged with multiple murders. There are a number of individuals who are out on bail having been charged with multiple serious firearm offenses and who come out and then get charged again for other serious firearm offenses. While an individual has a right to his freedom, and while there is a presumption of innocence, sir, it is clear to me that in a situation where people are coming out on bail and reoffending in the most vicious and callous of ways, sir, we as a parliament and those of us on the executive have to make a deliberate response to deal with this issue. Mr. Speaker, I believe that the average Barbadian, while their hearts will go out to the challenges that these people face, they are concerned about how we protect our society. And as I have canvassed people, sought their views, many of them exclaim, but what he doing out on bail? What he doing out on bail? And sir, perhaps when once we ask that question, then we begin to look at the solution. This Parliament is today being asked to make an amendment to our Bail Act. And the purpose of this amendment, sir, is to restrict in a very serious way the ability of individuals charged with certain offenses to get bail. It is not a knee-jerk reaction. It is a reaction, sir, that takes into account what we are seeing on our streets. And I'm not going to try to prejudice anybody, but would it surprise you, Mr. Speaker, to hear that many of the people who are charged with murder offenses and come out on bail, not only are they charged with subsequent murder, not only are they charged with subsequent murders, but in many instances, sir, they are prime suspects in yet other murders. Not calling any names, I'm not going to prejudice anybody. But would it surprise you, Mr. Speaker, if I said that individuals are prime suspects in 1 and 2 other murders after coming out on bail and go and get charged with murder again? So it is useful, sir, in this context for me to cite from a case in Canada called the Queen against Hall. And in the Queen against Hall, sir, the matter of bail came up. And it was dealt with in the Supreme Court of Canada, which is the highest court of appeal in Canada. And it was a case where an individual had slashed a woman 37 times. There was evidence that he attempted to cut off her head, and obviously she died. And that society was very fearful of the environment. And the judge said, this city, like other small cities, looks to its courts for protection. The feelings, This city, like other small cities, looks to its courts for protection. The feelings of the community have been expressed by certain witnesses. Some people are afraid, and some people have voiced their concerns. And he goes on to say, sir, moreover, the offense was grievous. There is no higher or worse crime in this country than first-degree murder. A lot of similarities here, sir. Because Barbadians too recognize that there is no crime worse than the intentional taking of another person's life. And the statement of the judge, when he considered the fear that had begun to engulf that particular Canadian community, he said the people are looking to the courts for protection. Now, Mr. Speaker, bail is granted by our High Court judges. And I'm not here to bash anyone today, so let me make that clear. Judges act on information put before them. But there is a higher calling that they're required, in my view, to take into account, sir. And I can empathize with people when they ask the question, what is that individual doing out on bail? Because when the Bail Act is considered, the court is to have regard, I'm talking about the Act as it is now, sir. The court is to have regard to the nature and seriousness of the offense. The nature and seriousness of the offense. The court has to look at that before making a decision on whether to grant bail or not. It also has to look at the character, antecedents, associations, and community ties of the defendant, sir. Character, associations, antecedents, and community ties of the defendants. So our judges are required under the law to consider, well, you may say that character could mean just about anything. But antecedents takes into account what you've already been charged with. So you got to look at the antecedents. So a person who has already been charged with murder and is out on bail, a court ought to be looking and say, wait a minute, you already on bail for murder and charged with another murder. And the court is also able to look under our law, in fact it is required to look under our law, at the associations of the defendant. Sir, if that is the YMCA, so be it. But I believe, sir, that the associations that the court should be principally concerned with here would be such things as gang involvement. Those are the kinds of issues that have to be considered by the court. The court, under this section, is also required to look at the strength of the evidence of his having committed the offense. This is not Dale Marshall speaking, this is the Parliament of Barbados speaking. The court must look at the evidence, the strength of the evidence. So in a case where the strength of the evidence tips in favor of a conviction, a court would be hard-pressed to grant somebody bail. And I can't tell anybody what to do, but certainly one would consider that if you commit a shooting and there are cameras and so on that have captured you, then I don't know how much stronger evidence a person could want. But, sir, despite these strictures, people still seem to be getting bail in circumstances where the communities are feeling that when they look to the courts for protection, that they're not getting it. And that's the problem, sir. Our communities, that's what the judge said, the communities look to the courts for protection. But our communities are not feeling as if the court is affording them the level of protection that they require. In these circumstances, sir, the legislative is being invited today to take a decision to intervene by providing, Mr. Speaker, by enacting that in any case where a person is charged with murder, treason and high treason, but those have always been in the act, so that's not new, or an offense under the Firearms Act which is punishable with imprisonment for 10 years or more, that such a person shall not be granted bail unless 24 months have passed. So a person, for the purposes of this debate, a person charged with murder or a person charged with one of the more serious offenses under the Firearms Act will not be eligible for bail in under 12 months. 24 months, sir, sorry, in under 24 months. I mean, in under 24 months. I was thinking while I was talking, and the two weren't in the same place. In under 24 months, sir. Now, Mr. Speaker, some may argue that there's no magic in 24 months. Some people have suggested to us that we should make it 36. Some people have suggested to us that we shouldn't give them bail at all. But we still have a duty to maintain an orderly society where rights of individuals are balanced. One of our big challenges, sir, has to do, in fact, perhaps the principal challenge with this bail issue has to do with the length of time it takes for criminal cases to be completed. And we therefore have taken decisions, and I'm not going to go into them now because I've spoken about them ad nauseum. We've taken decisions which we feel will bring about a significant shortening of the time between an individual being charged and an individual being tried. And we feel that when once those measures kick in, that there can be no good reason why a trial of any indictable matter should not be able to take place in the ordinary course of things in anything under 24 months. In fact, sir, we feel that for the more serious of our offenses, they should all be tried within 12 months. But this is not a case, sir, where we are talking idle. We have put the resources in place. We're putting the judges in place. We're putting the courtrooms in place. All of the things, we're giving the PP's office additional prosecutors, all of the things needed, sir, to bring that period now down from the 5 and 6 and 7 years that it is now. We intend to bring it within a short period of time. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, to set a period of 24 months as a bail restriction, we think, is reasonable in this case. But, sir, courts must always have an opportunity to exercise some discretion, and notwithstanding the bald prohibition we have outlined in the bill, a number of cases where a court is able to hear an application and to grant bail in circumstances, in limited circumstances where the need arises. So, for example, if the court is of the view that the evidence against the accused is weak, and that happens sometimes, sir, I know you've argued cases like that, then the court has an opportunity to say, the case against you is weak, I'm not going to keep you up dogs for 24 months. And that can arise in a number of instances, sir. A person might be charged with murder when on the facts of the case, the person could not have had the mens rea to commit murder. The mental element might not be there. And in fact, later in the section, we actually provide that where you can raise a defense of self-defense, that a court would be able to grant an individual bail. Now, reaching this compromise did not come easy, because there's a sentiment, sir, there's an anger that is being expressed in the Barbadian society, given what is besetting us. But we did feel, sir, that there were times when, let's take, for example, somebody breaks into your house, and you and them get into something, they get shot, die, but you might still be charged with murder. You shouldn't be, but you might be. Because I think anybody who has practiced in the criminal bench, in the criminal bar long enough, would know that there are instances where you are left wondering, well, why would you have charged this person with homicide? They have personal experience, sir, of an individual who had been threatened day and night by an assailant. The assailant went to the police and tell the police, I don't care what you tell me, I can kill you. And when the fateful attack came, the individual defended himself. So you had, clearly self-defense. But he was charged with murder. I'm not going to fuss about that. But the point is, it can happen. So we have made provision where, in certain limited circumstances, notwithstanding the prohibition, an individual would be able to get bail in a case where the case is weak or where self-defense can be pleaded and so on. We've also sought to put other arrangements in place. Sometimes these bail applications are heard in the High Court, but the people who are there as gatekeepers for Barbadians, they're not aware that a bail application is being made. And now, for the first time, we are providing that a bail application can only be heard 72 hours, no fewer than 72 hours after it has been served on the DPP. So an individual who is making an application for bail in the High Court, you must serve your application on the DPP, and it cannot be heard in under 72 hours. Now, the purpose for that, sir, is to give the Director of Public Prosecutions an opportunity to find out what the factual matrix are, what are the individual's antecedents, what are his associations, where the police stands, are you currently investigating another offense for this individual, and so on. All of those things, so that the DPP can be the gatekeeper and say to the judge, there are circumstances where we do not think bail is appropriate, and these are the circumstances. And we think that this is an important measure. It may be small, but it's an important measure because it allows the state to have a significant voice when these bail applications are made. Because, Mr. Speaker, I believe that you well know that sometimes a bail application is filed, and you might call a particular judge who might be accommodating, and you literally slip in before the judge and the bail application is heard and you're on your way. It happens. It happens. But this attempts to bring order to that kind of environment. Now, Mr. Speaker, we know that dealing with the Bail Act in this way will not solve all of our problems. But I'm convinced, sir, that it will go a long way in bringing some order to our streets. Mr. Speaker, there are a number of young men, and perhaps even young women, who, because of the prevailing environment where it is considered that you can get bail, don't hurt your head, bail can come, just cool out, you can get bail. There are a number of young men and women who are saying, sir, it's all right, I can do what God do and I can go up, and in 6 months I can be back out. And there's a peculiar phenomenon that's happening, sir. I grew up in a generation when you had to be neat and tidy, and you had to speak well, and you had to keep out of trouble in order to be attractive to the fairer sex. Remember, for his city, it's like that, sir. That's why he's always neat and tidy. But, Mr. Speaker, there is today a generation of individuals who see going up to prison as a means of rising in the estimation of his or her peers and in the estimation of the girls who they're trying, the women that they're trying to attract. Now, I think somebody might call the conservative people in here popes. but, sir, in our society, our young men are rendered more appealing to young girls if they went up to Dodge for 3 months. He get bail and he comes back out as a celebrity. He comes back out as a celebrity, sir. Now, as fanciful as that is to you or I, that is the prevailing view in that particular class of individuals. And because there's a feeling that based on happenings, I can be back out on bail in 3 or 4 months, the big thing. Well, no, sir, you ain't gonna get no bail in 3 or 4 months anymore, because we are starting you off up there at 24 months. So if you want to go and shoot somebody and feel that you could go up and be back out in a few months on bail and be a celebrity, think again. Now, after the 24-month period, you are now entitled to apply for bail. But my job is to make sure that after the 24-month period, you are either convicted or acquitted. We will not be tolerating these situations where cases drag on and on and on and on. So as far as I'm concerned, as far as this executive is concerned, as far as this chamber is concerned, that circumstance will not obtain. Within 24 months, you should either be free or serving time, one or the other. So the people who feel that going up to Dodge will bestow on them some kind of celebrity status, well, I don't know, but I would like to suggest that as of this week, you need to think again. You may be a celebrity up there, but by the time you manage to get back out, if a stiff sentence is imposed on you after conviction, after conviction, the people that you were running with won't remember you. You hopefully will be a changed man or woman when you come back out, sir. Mr. Speaker, I don't think that this is a matter that requires any long convincing of the chamber. But I do feel it's important to put before this House another matter, sir. Any intervention in relation to firearms, it has to be well thought out, and it has to be multidimensional. We have increased the patrols. Our police officers have given up time. They have been scoring some success in terms of finding firearms in their searches. And the government is investing $40 million in the port in new scanners to try to stop the firearms from coming in. All of these things are being put on the table, sir. But there are a number of Barbadians who have been expressing an interest in seeing gun amnesties being returned to our, as part of the equation, being returned to our arsenal. Now, let me say, Mr. Speaker, that we've had gun amnesties. We had a gun amnesty, gun and fire and ammunition amnesty in 1983. Remember, I told you that in the decade of 88 to 98, we had a total of 40 shooting deaths. Well, in 1983, sir, as remarkable as it might seem to us now, there was a spike in firearm crime. And the gun amnesty was established then. And it was implemented for a period of the 1st of July to December 31st, a full 6 months. And then again, sir, in 1998, another gun amnesty was offered to Barbadians. The purpose of a gun amnesty, sir, is to allow individuals who have in their possession unlicensed firearms, parts of firearms, ammunition that they know they should not have, allow them to bring them in. And in the nature of any amnesty, the police take them into any police station and you're not asked a single question. Our mission then is to get them off of the streets. People have been asking for it, sir, and I have consulted with the police force, and I announced today that after this legislation is passed in all of its stages and becomes law later in the week, a gun amnesty will be offered to Barbadians. But let me make it clear, sir. In 1983, the gun amnesty was for 6 months. In 1983, I think the member for the city had just left the University of Waterford, and I was preparing to leave. The Prime Minister had just left and gone to London. In 1983, sir. In 1983, the member for Christchurch West had not yet done the common entrance exam. In 1983, sir, things were very different then. This firearm amnesty, sir, guns and ammunition, will not be so generous. You have a week. A week, sir. Anybody who has in their possession an unlawful firearm or ammunition, the amnesty runs from Sunday, 7th of April 2019 until Saturday, 13th April 2019 at midnight. At midnight, sir, gloves are off. This amnesty, for the avoidance of doubt, relates to firearms, parts of firearms, and ammunition, sir. Somebody once said to me that a gun without a bullet is just a hammer. Well, sir, we want the hammers and we want the nails. But it's just a week, sir. Because if you have an unlicensed firearm, it does not take you 6 months to figure out whether or not you want to hand it in. Can't take 6 months, sir. We're not sending out anybody to go and look for firearms. If you have ammunition that you know you have no lawful reason to have, take it to any police station, day or night. No questions asked. If you have guns, parts of guns, any police station, day or night, no questions asked. And if you know, and you can go and get your hands on it, take it to a police station too, sir. But 1 week. 1 week, sir. And it is 1 week because the criminal element in this society has to understand that we mean business. A government is elected for the purpose of protecting the citizens. That is why the member of St. Thomas is here, isn't it? That is why I am here, sir. My business is to protect citizens, not to coddle criminals. Coddling criminals, I don't know whose business that is, but it's not ours. It's not ours, sir. And I know that I will hear, but that too short. It doesn't take long to get from wherever it is with a gun to a police station. We have police stations all over the place, sir. 1 week. And at the end of that week, I propose to report to the country what and how many we've been able to recover. I'm declaring it publicly that there's an amnesty, and the police will tell you periodically how many guns they seize in a raid. I believe that I can tell the country how many guns coming from the amnesty. But I can tell you, sir, I can tell you that there are people who believe that an amnesty is not the solution. The people who believe that the kinds of guns that we want to get off the streets don't come in an amnesty. Somebody who spends $10,000 on an AK-47, I hear that's the going price on the street, is not likely to show up at a police station and say, sir, I am washing my hands with this. But he could never say that he didn't have a chance to do so. He can never say, sir, that he didn't have a chance to do so. I am warning the criminal element of Barbados, do not test or resolve. Do not test or resolve. This is not something that we can be flippant about, but do not test or resolve, sir. We are here as a government to protect the lives, livelihoods, and interests of the majority of people, and I don't think that I or any of us will ever agree that 10 or 15 or 20 hoodlums will mash up our country, sir. But you know, sir, we have become so mamby-pamby. I saw on social media somebody saying that, criticizing the Attorney General, saying that he calling our young men hoodlums, sir. It is only polite discourse and the rules of the chamber that will stop me from calling anybody who shoot another man or another woman something worse. But we have become so mamby-pamby that even to dare to call somebody who walk around with a gun and shoot a person in a public place a hoodlum, you know, that's the society we are in now. People take offense at that, sir. People take offense at that. Do not test or resolve. Mr. Speaker, I believe that this bill gives an opportunity for us as a parliament to send a signal to the country that we are absolutely serious about protecting our streets. It will serve to put a regime in place that will strengthen the hands of the judges. Some may say that it may, in some ways, tie the hands of the judges. But I want to tell this chamber that one of the conditions that you will find in this new bill is that the court, and for those of you who are looking at the bill, it's at the top of page 5, sir. We're adding in another subparagraph which says that in looking at the question of bail and in considering whether to refuse bail or not, that the court should take into account also the need to maintain confidence in the administration of justice. And as I come to a close, sir, I said to you that in the case of the Queen against Hall, the Supreme Court of Canada said quite clearly that the people look to the courts for protection. And so the context for this new subclause F, which requires a judge to take into account to maintain confidence, the need to maintain confidence in the administration of justice, sir, it is in that context that this particular subclause is included. In the Court of Appeal in Canada, the court considered exactly this kind of clause. Exactly this kind of clause, sir. And it said this: on the facts of this case, and I'm going to read a bit, so I hope you will stay with me. The facts of this case offer convincing proof that in some circumstances it may be necessary to the proper functioning of the bail system, and more broadly the justice system, to deny bail even where there is no risk the accused will not attend trial or may reoffend. Boland J. and strong and cogent evidence found that detention was necessary to maintain confidence in the administration of justice. The crime was heinous and unexplained. The evidence tying the accused to the crime was very strong. People in the community were afraid. The provision at issue serves an important purpose to maintain confidence in the administration of justice in the circumstances such as these. Therefore, the Parliament provided for the denial of bail where the situation, when viewed objectively, where the court has decided that to allow an accused to be released in the community on bail in the face of heinous crime and overwhelming evidence may erode the public's confidence in the administration of justice. He goes on, where justice is not seen to be done by the public, confidence in the bail system and more generally the entire system of justice may falter. Where the public's confidence has reasonably been called into question, dangers such as public unrest and vigilantism may emerge. Public confidence is essential to the proper functioning of the bail system and the justice system as a whole. And he quotes from another case, to maintain the rule of law, a core value of our society, it is necessary to maintain respect for the law and the courts. So the point is, sir, that this Supreme Court of Canada argued that in a situation where a court has the opportunity to consider the confidence in the judicial system and the confidence in our system of justice, it may be appropriate to take that into account when making a determination on bail, sir. And I think that this hit the nail on the head, because when I talk to my constituents and they ask me, why he out on bail? Why he out on bail and killing people? They're demonstrating to me, sir, that they're looking to the courts for protection. And it is their view, though perhaps not expressed, that the courts have not been serving that purpose. Mr. Speaker, this bill has been drafted in such a way as to require a constitutional majority. It is drafted in this way because our Constitution recognizes the importance of the liberty of the subject, and it recognizes the presumption of innocence. But all constitutions, Mr. Speaker, must give way to the significant needs of a society and the importance of protecting its people. It has been said time and time again that no constitutional right is paramount. None. because you must always be able to abridge in a reasonable way those rights in order to protect the larger interests of the society. Mr. Speaker, I end with one further thing. It has never been the part of any administration in Barbados to take the various arms of government into its confidence. For generation after generation, cabinets have made decisions, parliamentary process has ensued, and the people of Barbados were subject to a decision-making that sometimes they weren't always too clear on. We in this administration have determined that every single member of Parliament, whether you are an opposition member, an opposition senator, or an independent senator, has a right to understand in serious circumstances what is facing our country, so that you will have those things in mind when you are asked to do the extraordinary. I have been in Parliament not as long as many, but in this particular house, longer than most. Longer than most, sir. And the Prime Minister could tell you that we've come to Parliament amending constitutional provisions, but we've never gone to the trouble of embracing the others in Parliament and trying to explain to them why we feel there's a need to do this. On Thursday last week, under the chairmanship of the Prime Minister, we met with all of the parliamentarians, again, because we did it before. And we sought to explain that this particular statute, which requires a constitutional majority, a suite of statutes, is being brought to Parliament, firstly, in short order, because this is something that we consider urgent. And therefore, we felt it was necessary to say to them, this is not something that we're going to treat by way of any extended parliamentary process. Secondly, we wanted to explain to them the reason for the urgency. And the reason for the urgency, sir, is that we need, as a parliament, to put steps in place to assist the police and even the courts in helping us to wrestle the scourge of murders and firearm offenses to the ground. That is the context. Mr. Speaker, we're asking all of Barbados to join with us in this endeavor. We've asked Parliament to do so, we've asked the opposition to do so, we've asked the independent senators to do so, sir. Because this is not about the Barbados Labour Party. You know, when the shootings were taking place, I was the opposition spokesperson on law and order. I repeatedly said that as an opposition, we will support any reasonable measure, whether financial or otherwise, to help to rescue our society. That was the stance of the opposition then. It wasn't gallerying. We said it publicly. We reached out a hand to the government and said, we are willing to work with you. We've reached out to former commissioners of police and said to them, come and join us in this fight. We are a government, sir, that is working night and day, but at the end of the day, if the rest of Barbados does not band with us, we may well lose this battle. And, sir, for all who are within earshot, for all who can see us, this is not a political fight. This is not a Barbados against the leader of the Barbados Labour Party against the leader of the opposition, against the DLP, against the UPP, sir. Because at the end of it all, the people who we all want to protect are Barbadians, regardless of who they voted for when they went to the polls. You see, sir, you can only vote if you're over 18. But we have to fight for the 1-year-olds, and the 2-year-olds, and the 10-year-olds, and the 15-year-olds. all of those individuals who we have to mold now, who we have to try to orient in order to save not just our society today, but our society for generations to come. I urge all of my colleagues in this chamber to support this amendment. I do not believe it to be draconian. I believe it to be vital to us being able to deal with the challenges that we face. I commend it to the opposition. I commend it to the members of the upper house. I commend it to Barbados. It is a sincere effort and an urgent effort to help an entire country face a brighter tomorrow. I'm obliged to you.
Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise in support of my Attorney General. And I do so, sir, first and foremost, as Prime Minister, and to say to the country that the measures outlined by the Attorney General have enjoyed the full confidence of my Cabinet, that we are satisfied that they are in order, and that they are consistent with a government that supports the balance of rights between the state and the individual. I rise also in support of him as Minister of Finance, because I have laid before this chamber warrants and requests, appropriation requests for sums of money that are to boost not just the law enforcement arm, but the administration of justice arm with respect to the first expansion of the number of criminal courts from 2 to 5, because it is only, Mr. Speaker, in the expansion of the number of law courts dealing with criminal matters, as you would know, sir, that we can even begin to balance the duties of the state with the rights of the individual. That we have inherited 10,000 criminal cases as a backlog is a travesty and a sad reflection on where this country has reached. That we are prepared to wrestle down the most urgent and serious of these cases is absolutely critical. But at the same time, Mr. Speaker, that we also boost the capacity of law enforcement to protect and to serve the people of this nation is equally imperative. That we treat to this, not just with respect to immediate law enforcement, but in understanding and in trying to save those 8 to 15-year-olds who for the last decade were left at the mercy of the high winds and the ravages of the environment, such that the majority of persons coming before the courts now with respect to these serious offenses lie regrettably between the ages of 15 and 25. A lost decade in every respect. I rise in support of the Attorney General with respect to the defense of the Constitution. Because our Constitution, sir, is premised first and foremost on the protection of the state. And it protects the public interest in almost every aspect of the Constitution, recognizing that even as we view the state as the collective of individuals, that the individual rights must never trump those of the state. And I go further, sir, because as a former Attorney General too, I know what it is to have to balance the rights of the state versus the rights of the individual. And those who drafted our Constitution recognized that there will always be derogations from the individual rights to protect the rights of the collective. If not, who says whose right, yours or mine, is to dominate? Whose right, yours or his? Yours or hers? And there's a point at which, therefore, the defense of public safety and national security, the defense of public health Most people in Barbados do not know that the most powerful person in this country is not the Commissioner of Police, is not the Chief Justice, is not the Prime Minister, is in fact the Chief Medical Officer, who can shut down anywhere at any time without explanation to anybody in defense of the public health of this country. And if you go behind that principle, you then understand that the reason for it is the defense of the collective. Member for St. Michael East likes to talk all the time about collective. It is the defense of the collective, the defense of the state, the defense of the population. Now, Mr. Speaker, sir, if I ever had any doubt about this, and the public knows that I am a person who, I don't travel Barbados incognito like a previous Prime Minister. I travel Barbados in full glare, and I mix with any and everybody, because that is my nature, but it is also my duty. And Mr. Speaker, in these matters, when you engage with ordinary people, the most and of all backgrounds and of all ages, the most important thing that is revealed is that people want order and stability. Even among those who may ultimately find themselves within the arms of the law, because like you, sir, my practice of the law when it occurred was primarily based on a criminal practice at the bar. And we know that they too understand the need for order and stability. Do not get tired. And that any system or any group of people that do not have order will self-destruct. It is not the intention of this government to preside over the self-destruction of this country, and it will not happen. The Attorney General has appropriately said that our resolve will not be tested. And Mr. Speaker, it will not. We have a duty to protect those among us who are not in a position to protect themselves. And equally, we have a duty to sustain the effort of those who are working beyond the call of duty, namely our police and our other law enforcement officials, but who are completely disheartened when they take actions that allow persons to be charged and only to find that months or a year later the person receives bail, and that the same things or same types of crime for which those persons have been charged, they are now being investigated again in the society. Sir, a small state is not a large country. I want to repeat myself. A small state is not a large country. There are things that can happen in large countries that don't affect the stability of the overall state. Not so in a small state such as ours. I never tire of saying that if you sneeze in St. Lucie, you catch a cold in St. Philip. And it is largely because the island is too small, and what happens in one community immediately spills over to other communities in this country. And therefore it means, sir, that the defense of the public interest is a more delicate balance than it might otherwise be in large countries. But even in large countries, as you heard in the quotations taken from the Canadian case just now, even in large countries, there's a recognition that there is a public interest to be protected. And the very same case which the Honourable Attorney General cited from reflects on the history of bail. In our instance in Barbados, certainly when I was at the bar, you did not get bail for murder charges. The Honourable Attorney General said that the first time it happened was in 2007, pursuant to the Bail Act that was passed in the late 1990s. But in Canada, large country, you got bail for all offenses from 1898. Because the implications for what constitutes or offends the public interest is entirely different. And you would appreciate that in our history we have had spikes of crime that have offended the sensibilities of the nation, that have caused fear in the hearts of the population at different times. But the population always felt a sense of relief when that person or persons were arrested and removed from the public circulation through the denial of bail. Regrettably, what we have in Barbados today is the notion that a person, having been charged with murder, could be charged with another murder not at the same time or in the same place. And you begin to ask yourself, at what point does the public administration of justice defend the state and defend the individuals in the state? And it is at this point, and to this point, that we have come, sir. The public interest. The public interest, while still not undermining the integrity of the rights to be protected for the individual. We believe that to have cases heard within 9 months to 12 months is a reasonable prospect for guaranteeing the rights of individuals. But even down to 2 years, it is. 2 years is 40% less than what Pratt & Morgan would have set out as the 5-year limit. And when I say 2 years, for me, and I've said this to the Honourable Attorney General, 2 years should be sufficient time not just to hear the matter at first instance, but to go through all of the stages of appeals, in my view. And it is largely because technology affords us now the right to transcripts and other things that ought now to make the process of compiling and settling records for the appellate process significantly easier than it was before. Similarly, sir, there are aspects of the preparation and conduct of criminal cases that need to be brought into the 21st century. And that if we start to do that, we can then shorten the time period, because in the event that that person is truly innocent as determined by a panel of his peers in a jury, then they ought not to be spending long anyhow with respect to the entire process. But Mr. Speaker, like with all other things in life, it is about balance. And I, sir, therefore today, sir, rise simply to say to the Barbadian public that what lies before us is a determination that we need to be able to manage our families, our communities, and our country in such a way that people understand that violence under any rubric, but particular gun violence, is something that should be banished from these shores if all right-thinking Barbadians can work together to do so. You know, sir, 20, 30 years ago, two fellas get in a fight. They go for a 2x3 and hit one another, or they cuff down one another.
Big rock.
Big rock. They might even try to stab one another. And the chances of recovery are far greater than with a semi-automatic gun. It is the 15 seconds. I want the public to think about this, sir, and to begin to understand where our duty lies in our families, in our schools, in our communities, in our workplace, in our shops, in our places of entertainment. It is the 15 seconds that comes from the notion that I have been disrespected, or that I am offended, or that I have been lashed, or I have been hit at. It is that response in the first 15 seconds that determines where next a person goes. And part of the difficulty that we have is that there are too many stories of people being egged on by their peers, not fully appreciating the consequences of their actions until it is too late. And you know, sir, as I know, that more often than not, those behind the bars are crying after the act. They're not celebrating. And how much ever the notion that they may appear, as the AG says, to be more attractive to other people, it don't go so. The only people I know who celebrate the deprivation of liberty or hardship are people who are sociopaths. All the fancy talk, the majority of people that I know with whom I've interacted as a criminal lawyer were not in any way happy or celebrating the fact of their deprivation of liberty. And worse still, if they were sentenced to hang by a judge. These are the harsh realities. I spoke to a young man about 2 years ago, and he said to me, he himself he wasn't that young anymore. He was probably in his mid to late 30s. And he said to me, you could imagine that these youngsters come and tell me, man, I shoot that man and he playing like if he dead? A 16-year-old boy told him that. And the story stuck with me because he said, he went on to say, my man, if you use a gun and you shoot him, he ain't playing like if he dead. He probably is. But this is not cartoons. This is not a video game. And too often within our communities, there are too many stories of young people regretting their actions because a gun does not leave a margin of error. There is no buffer for error with a gun. There might be with a violent temper and a 2x3. There might be with a violent temper and a fist. There might be with a violent temper and a big rock. But Mr. Speaker, more often than not, there will not be with guns and a violent temper. Many years ago, I spoke in this country as Minister of Education to the importance of the use of language to be able to resolve conflict. And anybody who watched the series that they have going around called Badness? One of the same ones that the youngster who was killed in St. George acted in. And I don't get easily distracted because I think that the expression of the art is trying to reflect what they see and what they hear. And our duty is to make that reality of what they see and what they hear different. But one of the things that struck me was the limited use of language. The former member for the city of Bridgetown used to say all the time that the average person does not have a vocabulary or does not use a vocabulary beyond 50 or 60 words. And the first time she said it, you would shake. But the truth is that the average person really uses a very limited vocabulary. And it has been my experience, both as a person in the practice of criminal law, as well as a former Minister of Education and Youth Affairs and Culture, that more often than not, and as a Member of Parliament now in both houses for 28 years, 29 years, that people very often do not know how to express how they feel. And it is the absence of the capacity to express oneself that more often than not leads to the physical reaction, lashing out, a venting of emotions. And when we therefore say, sir, that we want the AG talked about people using language properly. And some people feel that you shouldn't. There's nobody who will speak more dialect than me when I have to. But there's also nobody like me who will also recognize that there is a time and a place for everything. And that is what we were taught as children. That is what was reinforced in us. And there's a reason for it. If our children are not equipped with the power of language, if our children are not equipped with the power of words, if our children do not have the social and emotional learning targets nurtured in them, to know and how to express caring and empathy, to know how to express anger, but still to be able to articulate it and to diffuse it. What then happens, sir, is the regrettable lashing out. If our children are not taught that there's choice and consequences, that the real test to adulthood and for adulthood is accepting that with every choice there is a consequence. And too often, sir, we are lamenting that this young person or this person wants to be given another chance because they didn't realize what they were doing.
We can give them.
Sir, I want to believe that the government which we lead will be balanced. We are going to give our people every possibility of development. We are going to do all that is within our powers to equip them with language and with capacity to manage emotions and to accept choice and consequences, the power of knowing the joy of what it is to belong to something meaningful, whether it is scouts or cadets or cricket club or football club or whatever it is, but something meaningful and purposeful that lets you understand that you're not walking this journey of life alone, that there are others who are there with you and who love you unconditionally, but that equally that we expect that to whom much is given, much is expected. And we do not expect our children, because a person at 16 and 17 and 18 and with all due respect at 20 and 21 are the children and young people of this nation. And we do not expect that a handful of them can come to define their generation, or a handful of them can come to scar their generation, or to blot the prospects, liberty, and safety of an entire nation. Sir, in families often, you might have 4 or 5 children, and one falls from grace and stands outside. I am not going to color the sheep because I believe that the coloring of the sheep is part of the decimation of the race to which I belong. But suffice it to say that the very story of Adam and Eve, the very understanding of humanity, if we don't want to go to the Bible, is that people will fall from grace and people will sin. But we have to find a way of allowing, and perhaps the leader of the opposition is better positioned in this debate to speak on these issues in this way and with this tone. No, you. Than I am. But I feel that at 53 years old, and with the journey that I have taken, I have a responsibility to speak with the people of this country in this way. Because no government can win this battle. No police force can win this battle. No set of judges alone can win this battle. The combined elements of the last 3 groups I just mentioned can't win it either. But who can win it is the nation and the people. Who can win it is the mother who refuses to accept that a young child can do something bad, can take up something that don't belong to them, and that can be encouraged in doing it. or a young child should lie, or a big adult should lie, and it be just, you turn a blind eye to it. Because if I can't trust you in the small things, I can't trust you in the large things. And that if anger rises up in you because somebody unfairs you, take the lesson from me. If you don't want, take the lesson from anybody else. I have used the phrase more often: leave the ball outside the off stump. For a decade, people ask me, why you never respond when people cursing you? I say, because it takes two people to fight. It takes two people to fight. If you leave the other person, they will look eventually like a raving lunatic. All they're doing is cussing and waving their hands. It takes two people to fight. And leave the ball outside the off stump. And there's so many proverbs, and there's so many stories within Sunday school and within our folklore that reinforce these very precepts. And you ask yourself, how have we all of a sudden not passed these on? Our children having children. And are those children not the recipient of these values and these morals that are so critical? How does it seem possible for a person in broad daylight to be brazen enough to pull a gun and to shoot somebody in the presence of others in a public space, but in the public space of the court hides his face with his hands as if the country has not already seen him? Mr. Speaker, sir, yes, our sensibilities have been offended. And yes, it is time for Operation Give Back to take back. Barbadians have to give back at every level of this society. In their families, in their church. In fact, they have to start going back to church again and sending their children to church. In their communities. And it's less about Jesus and more about understanding that there is a framework within which people have to understand what is their relationship with spirituality. In the schools, in the football and cricket clubs, in the scouts, in the Girl Guides, the Brownies, Key Club, in the workplace, in the political parties. All of these institutions which we have to go beyond our duty as we would normally see it and ask ourselves, what is it that I can do today to make a difference in somebody's life? What is it that I can do today to allow somebody to sleep a little easier tonight? And I say these things, Mr. Speaker, because while we fight the battle to stabilize immediately, as we will and as we must, as pointed out by the Honourable Attorney General, we must not create the pathway for others to come and join those who are already on the brink with respect to breaches of the law in this country. We will save those coming up and those who want to be saved and given a chance. The economy is not the best, but it is good enough for all of us to find something for everybody. And that's why I told the head of the International Monetary Fund last year that if we're going on a long journey, you must give people a little breakfast. Is it an economy that can fulfill our wants? No, not yet. Is it an economy that can fulfill our needs? Yes, it can. And it shall. But let us understand, Mr. Speaker, that as we do that, the country cannot abide by or tolerate those who want to upset the order of stability, not of their bloc, not of their grouping, but of the country of Barbados. And our solemn duty, for however long it lasts, is to protect that public space for the people of Barbados, Sir, I end on this point and recall simply that the police, the government, the courts, as much as you want to say, they all have their duty to play. But the real defenders of the state of this country, the real people who can make that defining difference to put behind us the last 3 months in the same way that we put behind us 1991 to 94 are the people of this country. And I want, for those who say it is not possible, to remind you, I came to public life as a senator in 1991. I practiced criminal law in those years. And this country had a spike of crimes, you will recall, even though you were not yet practicing, Mr. Speaker, that probably was even worse than what we are experiencing now for their pervasive nature in terms of the geographical spread and the nature of the crimes, including invading into people's houses in particular. Mr. Speaker, sir, the history of this country will record that as a nation, we were able to wrestle down by 2007 the number of burglaries to be in 1/4 of what it was in 1991 to 94, and the number of robberies to be in 1/3 of what it was in 1991 to 94. That we have known success, therefore, in reversing criminal spikes is absolutely clear. The Honourable Attorney General referred to the first gun amnesty in 1983 because there was a serious spike then, and we dealt with it. I pray, sir, that this Parliament, not just this House of Assembly, but that this Parliament will speak as one this week. But I pray equally that the people of Barbados will appreciate that this battle requires each and every one of us who has the good interests of the country at heart. Not just to accept that there must be a deprivation of liberty for 24 months, or that there must be a gun amnesty for 1 week, and that there will be zero tolerance to gun crime thereafter, or that the government is spending $41 million at the ports of entry in order to be able to have the scanners and the instruments of security that we should have had long time, or that we are spending $11 million in training for young people between the ages of 8 and 15, and then 15 and 25 in training and all types of activity. Not all those things alone, but that it is in the individual effort to give back that we will take back Barbados. And that one by one by one by one, as the old people would say, one blow is kill old cow. This is not an old cow to kill. This is a nation to build. And if we can ask each Barbadian who knows better and can do better to work with us in this effort, Mr. Speaker, sir, I hope and pray that in a few years' time we can look back at this time as one that tested our every sinew, but from which, sir, we emerged united and stronger because we were able to explain to those of our young people, the 50 or 60 of them, who are blemishing our state, that there is a better way, and that they too must take that better way, because what they are doing now undermines the integrity not just of the public space, but of the opportunities for they and their families to move to a better place and a better space. I pray, sir, for this, that this Parliament speaks with one voice, and that this country acts with one accord. I'm obliged to you, sir.
Honourable Member for Christchurch East.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to lend my full support to this amendment. I will say, Mr. Speaker, that like yourself and the Honourable Prime Minister, I started my legal career in the magistrates' courts, practicing criminal law, and did so pretty much up to when I changed professions. I went from the hallowed halls of justice into the hallowed halls of Parliament. And like yourself, Mr. Speaker, we would have fought time and time again for bail for persons. We would have fought for bail for persons who were charged with some heinous crimes. We would have been on the other side of the fence, where we forever touted the importance of liberty and the upholding of all the rights enshrined in the Constitution. So, I will say, Mr. Speaker, that the casual derogation of the rights of the individuals does not sit well with me, and it never has, and it probably never will. But equally, Mr. Speaker, I believe there comes a time when you have to prioritize what it is that you're doing. When you have to realize that country comes before the individual. And there are times when you look objectively at a situation and you realize that it is getting entirely out of hand and that something needs to be done. Let me start at the outset, Mr. Speaker, by commending the Honourable Attorney General. He has been stretched, sir, by all that has been happening and trying to respond and get ahead of things, Mr. Speaker, such that we preserve the integrity of our judicial system, we preserve the integrity of the police force, we preserve the integrity of Barbados and its reputation as a good place to be and a good place to bring up your children. I have, over the years, had my battles with the various commissioners of police, and to be honest, never really saw eye to eye with most of them, such that I think some recent commissioners, anytime any correspondence or anything with my name came to them, they probably looked at it and started by stripsing before reading. But having said that, that was because of my professional obligations. At no point in time have I ever not given the Royal Barbados Police Force the respect that it deserved as for the role it played in protecting society in Barbados, and also the various commissioners, the last commissioner, the current commissioner. They have my full respect, and the current commissioner has my full support. People have been slamming and lambasting the Royal Barbados Police Force, but I ask people to stop and think for a while. If somebody is intent on doing something bad, it is very seldom that you're able to stop them before they do it. What the police force has done, and has done well recently, is in getting to the bottom of their investigations quickly and arresting and charging people. So I wish, in light of all the flack that the police force is getting now, for people to be reasonable. Be reasonable. If you, in your mind, up and decide you are going to attack or kill a person, and you don't share that with anybody, all we can do is deal with the mess after it happens, and they have dealt with it quickly. So my confidence in the Royal Barbados Police Force and the hierarchy of the force and the AG's office is at perhaps the highest it has ever been. Now, Mr. Speaker, the Honourable Attorney General outlined to us all of the statistics and all of the facts that inform the decision of the AG and the Cabinet of Barbados to make this amendment. The other thing I would like to say is something happened last week, Thursday, Mr. Speaker, and Cabinet broke early because we were asked to attend a meeting at Parliament with the full Parliament of Barbados. All MPs, all senators. That is government, that is opposition, that is independent. Mr. Speaker, I sat for 5 years as a senator, before almost a year here now. In the 6 years that I've been in and around these precincts involved in the business of government, I have never been invited to a meeting that entailed everybody involved in the governmental process for the purpose of explaining, putting the cards on the table, and taking the entire government of Barbados into the confidence of the Prime Minister and the AG. And I wish to commend the PM and the AG for that. I also, Mr. Speaker, wish to commend the opposition and the independent senators. I think we've turned a page with something. We learned something last week that perhaps full information and full disclosure on matters of significance and substance to the country, especially where there are matters to deal with a crisis, allows everybody to be on the same page and allows people to make informed decisions that are to the best interests of Barbados. And that was done last Thursday. AG, I commend you, and I commend the Prime Minister for that. Mr. Speaker, it is of great concern to me that the majority of persons engaged in violent crime in Barbados are now late teens and early 20s. They're in a 5-year time span there, sir. Late teens and early 20s. People who properly should be furthering their education, learning a skill, being at university, BCC, polytechnics, something, trying to make themselves into productive members of society. It is this catchment, our youngest adults, that are turning to crime and seem to have no respect for life. I don't know, sir, if people exercise their mind to think as far as to the finality of death. There is no coming back from death. One person did it, well, two, Lazarus. But in the history of the world, two people did it. But, Mr. Speaker, we have made many advancements. Weapons have become more sophisticated to enable you to kill more efficiently. Our science had advanced to the point where we can actually perform operations through a hole, sir, as big as my fingernail and remove organs. But the one thing we have never been able to do in the history of mankind is to bring back somebody who is dead. And these young people need to understand that when you see on a movie men come in and start to shoot out, or a man walks up and shoots somebody assassination style, that is in the movie. Those are paid actors. When the scene cuts, that man gets up, wipes the fake blood off, and goes home to his family. It is not so when you put a gun to the head of somebody and pull the trigger in real life. That person will die and they're not coming back. This is as serious as it gets, Mr. Speaker. This is why the normal laws and the normal application of the laws are not going to work. Bail should only be denied. I believe that people have a right to bail. I do believe that. I preached that my whole life. I'd be a hypocrite to say otherwise now. Can I have some water, please? There's a right to bail. But the right to bail for the individual has to be balanced against what is good for society and the perception of the justice system. We're going into a new frontier now with the amendments that the Honourable Attorney General is making to the Bail Act. The Honourable AG referenced the case of R.V. Hall, a Canadian case, and he touched on some aspects of the judgment. I wish to actually read a couple aspects of the majority decision on the appeal that, if you listen to the words, you will understand why we're doing what we're doing. As per McLaughlin, CJ, and others, a provision that allowed bail to be denied on the basis that the accused man's detention was required, this is important, to maintain confidence in the administration of justice. It was neither superfluous nor unjustified. It served a very real need to permit a bail judge to detain an accused pending trial for the purpose of maintaining the public's confidence if the circumstance of the case so warranted. Without public confidence, the bail system and the justice system generally stood compromised. Where, as in the instant case, the crime was horrific, inexplicable, and strongly linked to the accused, a justice system that could not detain the accused man risked losing the public confidence upon which the bail system and the justice system, Whereas in the instant case, the crime was horrific, inexplicable, and strongly linked to the accused, a justice system that could not detain the accused risked losing the public's confidence upon which the bail system and the justice system as a whole reposed. The court held that a valid consideration in denying bail was not simply, will the man reoffend? It was not simply, could we guarantee he'll be there to attend his trial? It was not simply the seriousness of the crime, the usual ones that the prosecution call out. But there is now a new one that has to be considered and is valid. If it appears that the justice system is powerless to keep persons whose crimes are so horrific from being granted bail, then the perception of the justice system and the bail system itself will be compromised. And that is what we are doing here. Sir, the public is lambasting the justice system right now. They shifted off of the police. They're giving them a little break now, but they're lambasting the judges. It cannot be, sir, it cannot be that someone convicted of not one murder, or sorry, someone accused of not one murder but two, can be granted bail. If that person gets out, sir, what does the public then think of the judicial system? Especially when the person goes on to commit another offense. The judicial system appears a farce and a fraud and powerless. Our justice system must never be perceived as powerless. So what the Honourable AG has done, I said, look, we accept that right now the system is slow, and anybody can come and say because of the inherent slowness, pace of the system, that this person is unlikely to get a trial for 5 to 10 years, you cannot keep them. That has been the excuse. The bulk of the times when somebody is granted bail for murder is because of the length of time it takes to get the trial on. And the judges might find themselves or feel themselves fettered and having to protect the rights of the individual where the Constitution guarantees the right to a fair trial in a reasonable time. So what the AG has done is looked at the Canadian case, looked at the justification, and legislated it now. So we are now removing it from the discretion of the judge. The judge does not have to feel himself constrained to defend constitutional rights. What the AG has said, to remove all doubt, to preserve the integrity of the justice system and to protect Barbados and Barbadians, where your crime is so horrific, where you are charged with murder or firearm offense that is so serious that you would get 10 years in jail if found guilty, you are not eligible for bail within 24 months. AG, I applaud your bravery in doing that. But Mr. Speaker, we in law know nothing is absolute. So it contemplates, the amendments also contemplate the situation where circumstances are such that to do that will create the most horrible injustice. We know, sir, that the police in Barbados do not charge people with manslaughter. Anytime there's an unlawful death, the charge is murder. That leads to anomalies, sir. In situations where you know from the time the case starts, you know self-defense is a real defense and the person is likely to get off on self-defense. Even if the police feel themselves constrained to charge somebody with murder, there's a provision here that allows where it will cause so horrible an injustice, and it sets out what it is, that the court can still grant the bail. But there's a protection in there, sir. Right now, a judge can grant bail for murder without giving reasons, without writing his reasons. And I believe in an earlier draft, the intention was to force the judges in making a decision whether or not to grant bail to give their reasons within 72 hours of granting the bail. Now, sir, we all know that sometimes you act in haste and you repent at leisure. Sometimes you make a decision on the spot, and when you had the benefit of thinking about it, you wonder yourself, did I make the right decision? In the amendment providing for the fact that judges have to give their written decision contemporaneously at the same time as making the decision on bail, it forces that judge to think. So even when your 24 months has passed, or even if you apply under special circumstances, and the judge has heard both sides, and this provision as well that the prosecution can be surprised, they get 72 hours clear notice to allow them ample opportunity to digest the facts and represent their case properly in front of the judge. But when that is done, when the judge has heard from both sides, the judge has to step aside and start to pen his reasons. And sometimes, sir, when you look at what you are writing, you actually will end up coming to a different decision than had you not written. So this provision, I believe, is most important because it forces the judge to write their reasons down and look at them before making that decision. And I believe that is an exceedingly important part and provision that is going to guarantee that justice is served. Now, a very interesting thing happened on Saturday, Mr. Speaker. I was coming home and I reached the traffic lights closest to my house. There was a vehicle stopped in the road. You know, when you approach the traffic lights, there's a pad that you have to drive onto, and it triggers, it lets the lights know that somebody's waiting. So the vehicle had stopped just short of that pad. And a car pulled up behind the vehicle. And then I pulled up behind that car. So the three cars at the lights waiting for the light to change. I'm wondering what's going on. I'm looking out, thinking, why didn't this man drive onto the pad? And then all of a sudden, sir, you heard a loud bang, bang! And there was a lot of smoke. Well, sir, if you, like me, had ever had the benefit of suffering with an old vehicle, when you hear the loud bang and you see the smoke, you know that the car has backfired. But for people who've only ever driven new vehicles and may not know that, like perhaps the person who was in front of me They heard the loud bang. This is a true story, sir. I put my hand on my heart. I swear, this is a true story. They heard the loud bang. They saw the smoke. After a delay of 5 or 6 seconds, the 2 front doors opened. And a lady got out on the left-hand side, and a lady got out from the driver's seat. And they looked scared and panicked. The driver of the vehicle dashed to the back door, opened the back door, snatched out her handbag, grabbed a bag of groceries, and both of them started to run. This is a true story, sir. And the driver shouted out, "The car backfiring, the car backfiring." By this time, the lady was near my car door, and I said to her, "Sweetheart, the car is not a gunshot. The car is backfiring." She looked startled, and she said, "Look, I was so frightened, but I had to run." I said, "Well, you couldn't be that frightened if you actually went in the back seat and took out your handbag and your groceries and then went." Sir, as I'm telling you, sir, I'm telling you. So I got home, sir. As I walked in through the door, my wife said to me, "Did you hear that gunshot?" I said, "It was not a gunshot. It was a car backfiring." I got on the phone and I called the AG. And I said, because sir, to be honest, I was laughing. I was laughing real bad. I couldn't believe that the lady's first instinct was to grab the groceries and the handbag. Because if it was me, I thought it was a gunshot. Well, first of all, I would have driven off, being already in my car. If not, I would have dashed somewhere and left everything else. And I called the AG. And he said to me, "Wilfred, I want you to tell that story when you address the bail amendment. I want you to tell that story. Because it is funny initially, but it is not funny. We are now at the situation where the public of Barbados is so frightened. They are so frightened that they're paralyzed by fear. People are confused. They don't even know what to do when confronted with the situation. And that is as dangerous as it gets. The public of Barbados is so frightened and paralyzed that we think every loud noise now is something else. Once upon a time, sir, you heard a bang coming from the road. You felt it was a car backfiring or a motorcycle or something. Everybody felt it was a gunshot. That's where we are now. And that we have gotten here, it is well past time for us to do what needs to be done to take our country back. As I said, I have fought over and over for the rights of the individual. But sir, I believe God, and then family, and then country. And depending on which family member I'm talking to, so I might actually put country first. But it is up there, sir. The country is up there with my family. I love my country. I love Barbados. I do not love what is happening, and I do not love the people who are doing it to my country. We have made a departure from the regular in these bail amendments. Some may say they're draconian. I believe that based on what is happening now, they are indeed absolutely necessary. I believe we have gone about it in the right way. The police are doing what they can. It must be entirely demoralizing to the police force when they swiftly go to apprehend a suspect in a serious case, in a homicide, and the officers slave and do the investigation and put that case together. That because of problems with the judicial system over which they have no control, that people whose propensity is to violence are back out on the street, sir, with not a care in the world. We hear them, sir. When we go into our communities and campuses, we have to talk to everybody. The reality is, the youngsters, even the delinquent youngsters vote. You have to talk to all of them. And there is no respect for the police, and there is no respect for the court system. The youngsters will tell you, well, if I do something, the case can come off. By the time the case come on, somebody may dead. They will tell you that. They will tell you they're going chill out or cool out for a little while, and then they will get bail and come back out. That's what they're telling you. You cannot respect a system that allows them to perpetuate this misguided belief that the judicial system and the police force is a mere inconvenience, a blip, after which they will regain their freedom. What this says, sir, is think clearly. Think long and hard, because the people of Barbados are fed up. The police are fed up, the government is fed up, and we are prepared to do what it takes to get this situation under control. Challenge it if you want, we will deal with that then. But we as a government, and when I say we as a government, sir, I'm including every single person in here, and I'm also including those who form part of the governmental process in the Senate. All of us to a man are now completely fed up and prepared, sir, to put aside partisan alliances, to put aside political convictions or political, let me try it carefully, allegiances, that's the word I want, that's a neutral word, to put aside political allegiances, sir, and to honestly look within ourselves and do what now is required by Barbados and for the benefit of Barbadians, to take our streets back, to take our judicial system back, and to restore some level of respect for life, if not the preservation of life as a whole. Mr. Speaker, I am very comfortable in a way that I never thought that I'd be comfortable before in abrogating certain rights. I am comfortable and my conscience is clear that what we're doing now is what is necessary and in the best interests of Barbados. Courts have a duty, and their duty is to dispense justice, uphold the law, and to protect society. They might have found themselves or felt themselves constrained before, but this amendment removes some of that discretion from them, allows them to have their conscience clear, to especially now operate on the third limb of that in the protection of the society. Mr. Speaker, I wholeheartedly support this amendment to the Bail Act. I thank you.
Honourable Member for St. Thomas.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I want, sir, to highly commend the Honourable Member for St. Joseph and the Attorney General for having brought this Bail Act and the amendments today. I'm really very proud to be a part of this dispensation, because matters of this nature call for brave individuals, and brilliant ones too, in order to be able to bring about such change. The entire Barbados, sir, including some of our visitors, we are all afraid of the madness that has taken over this country over the last few years. And therefore, I want to add my support to what has transpired here today and what I know the people of Barbados will be proud to know. It will bring back a measure of confidence, it will bring back a measure of feeling safe and having tranquility permeating our various institutions and neighborhood. The actions, sir, of this government, particularly through the Honourable Attorney General today, speak of a government that has vision, strength, compassion, care and concern, not only for our own advancement, but that of the people of Barbados and those visiting among us. And I think that is very critical. Having had, sir, more than 50 years almost experience in education, it has me as a very older woman extremely astounded to see what has happened in my society that creates an element of fear and concern. And I believe that even those in the judiciary are afraid themselves because the foolish movies that our children are exposed to on the video and so, and they're not even understanding this is not real life, because you see the actor in another movie again, if he had been shot or whatever form of destruction happened to him to cause him to lose his life. And as children, we had comics, we had spare comics, we had Goofy and all those, but we also were taught how to fantasize. And that is what the Honourable Prime Minister was speaking about when she talked about social and emotional learning. We would play dress up at home, and we were the cowboys and the crooks. And we knew as children that in the cowboy and the crook movie, somebody used to die, but they had standards in that if you shot a man in the back as a part of it, there was a penalty. And somehow, our children are watching these movies, they're getting engaged in all these violent activities in their homes and their communities, and the home will not be overlooked at all today, Mr. Speaker, sir. And therefore, I am proud to see, people used to call it gumption, but to see the capacity of the Attorney General and this government in reaching out to make a difference when that was ignored, when calls were made. I am a proud member of this society, sir. Having joined in the administration, when we were the administration between 1994 and 2008, to have joined the then leader of the opposition, the late former Prime Minister of Barbados, the Honourable Member then for St. John, when as leader of the opposition for the Democratic Labour Party, as part of the government, but the leader of the Democratic Labour Party, he called for a crime and violence march in Bridgetown. And two people that I knew who were present and were at the forefront, because he encouraged us to join him at the forefront, having been in Queen's Park, the Honourable Member for St. Michael Northeast, and your humble servant here, sir. And I felt proud. I know one young lady cursed me very badly that evening and said he put in a B, coming here with me, and all kind of nonsense. I do not see crime as any political thing. Crime is something that permeates and destroys the heart of everybody. Don't care wherever in the world it is. And therefore, we were proud to be a part of it. There might have been more Labour Party supporters and members of Parliament in the audience, but clearly, the Honourable Member and myself, we were pulled to the front, and we marched every step of the way so that the public can see this is not a political thing. Crime is everybody's business. And so, Mr. Speaker, sir, I want to refer to Education and Youth Affairs that was under us at that time, when we inherited a government in 1994, when a then minister says there are no gangs in Barbados, only a few giddy-headed boys doing foolishness. And we came in and determined the Youth Affairs Department attached to education and culture. And that would have been coordinated by the Right Honourable Member of St. Peter, who is no longer in this honourable chamber. But it goes to show the vision that the Labour Party had at that time. And the point is, youth affairs, culture and education working hand in hand together, looking at those who are the teachers and the other administrators, those who are the children, those who are parents and guardians, pulling all the threads together to create a safety route for our Barbados and advancement for the black and white people of this country. And I heard today, I'm looking at an honourable member here, sir, who served as a youth commissioner for more than 20 years, who was out there in the trenches as the eyes and ears for the youth, coordinating and pulling projects together to make a difference. And we saw a slackening of any crime and violence in this country. For more than 14 years we worked on it, and we saw the tremendous difference. And there were programs that will bring us back to what the honourable member for St. Michael East and our Prime Minister said earlier, about working together, the social and emotional learning, letting our children fantasize, hearing the stories of the Aesop fables. the tortoise and the hare, the crow and in the picture. Don't remember the full name now. All those sayings from the Bible that told us thou shalt not kill from the commandments, to love one another for love is of God, to be able to share and to care for one another. Who had you by the big belly cow, don't help you feed them. Any coward who runs away lives to see another day. The golden rule. And I don't care who gets started of me, let me say, a lot of our adults and honorable members here perhaps don't know it so well. Do unto others as you will have them do unto you. How can somebody kill somebody, beat somebody, steal somebody's thing, and then go into hiding? Would you like somebody to do it to you? But are we doing enough of that in our homes? Are we doing enough of that in our schools? Are we doing enough in our churches? And I'm not blaming anybody, I'm just making the point, things can change in this country, and this government is ready, willing and able, and has put the resources in that we can turn this country around, Mr. Speaker, sir. Our vision in Youth Affairs, sir, at that time, having learned, yes, you do have some young people who have gone astray. Yes, we have parents who don't have the know-how or who don't seem to care that children should be nurtured. And so we came up with the Parent Volunteer Program, engaging parents. We came up with sports, where the Youth Development Department, or the Youth Development Program, I should say, under the Youth Affairs Department, engaged thousands of youth in the zone every day across this island. Because when you give them that opportunity to exercise, they become tired, they use up the energies, and they are directing the energies into other directions, ensuring that their health, because once you exercise, your health will improve, but then you don't have any time to go and sit down and plan any heinous crime or anything that you could do that was stupid. And then we had the youth achieving results, because everybody in Barbados now seems to think that everyone should be an academic up front. Any society has to have all kinds of people, might pipe education, or might not have been given qualifications in the way we look at it, but that is dynamic and does the work that I cannot do, because I'm not an academic either. But the point is, the youth achieving results made sure that our young engaged them, and it was a part of the school's curriculum that it was done. We had the Peace Program, where children were able to get the opportunity to upgrade their skills and talents in music, because a lot of our children are musically inclined, but they did not have the wherewithal because of poverty to be able to play a violin or a piano or keyboard or whatever instrument. The ministry invested in that. Our young people were given amplifiers and so on to help them to develop their talents in music, and we have had a lot of bands that have sprung up as a result. The youth service, where our young people were drafted into businesses and they got opportunities to be able to become apprenticeships and so as a part of it. We also had the Alma Parish School, sir, that ensured that those late developers got an opportunity 1 day a week from third form to be able to do a school to work program. They learned the skill in boat building, in baking, hospitality, in barbering, a lot of other areas. That school closure has been closed by the last administration. And we have a lot of young children out there, 13, 14, 15 years, not going to school, because they've not been performing well, and school for them is to go to Skylar, to walk the corridors, to curse the teachers, to fight with others. A lot of problems, Mr. Speaker, sir. And therefore we need to find ways of harnessing the capacities of those children, because a child who may not be able to read and write and speak well might be the best artist in Barbados. Why must our children wait until they go to prison to be able to find out that they have that innate ability to be able to paint, to draw, to become a baker, to become whatever kind of performing artist, when it can be done out here in our institutions? And then you hear, oh, he's one of the best artists. I have beautiful paintings that I bought, sir, from prisoners over the last 20 years. Whenever we had an annual conference, the honourable member for St. Michael West could speak about it, sir. The honourable members on this side and on that side, sir, where the prisoners' work was brought down and displayed, and members came up from the conference and purchased, because they need that money when they leave prison to help them to be back on their feet. and we are not doing enough, Mr. Speaker, in the school system in some instances, and in other aspects of our development to be able to carry our young people forward. I want, sir, for us to continue to engage our young people in activities similar to what even Richard Carter, if you will call me his name, sir, the Director of Youth Affairs at that time, who set up a program with the encouragement and the approval by the ministry then to say to the young people and to those women and men out there, bring the toys you have bought for your children once you have bought them a toy gun. A toy gun that may be carrying water in it, but the children learning well and early enough, you wouldn't play with me and I shoot you with water. Or whatever little things they used to have in the with balls and so. And Mr. Carter and his program with the Youth Affairs had a program every year. Parents brought into the Ministry of Education the toy guns, and in exchange for the toy guns were educational toys and books. And that stopped as soon as the government changed in 2008. Because early o'clock the children are learning to shoot. They don't care what kind it is a toy gun, but they're learning to shoot. I also want, Mr. Speaker, to say the reason why a Barbados Labour Party government between 1994 and 2008 caused that government to have that vision of ensuring that every parish and sometimes most of the communities got the opportunity for the establishment of pavilions, playing fields, and we made sure that the majority of them, according to what resources, monetary resources were available, to have them lit at night. Nowadays, and our schools were to be open from 3 o'clock on evenings in our time to make sure that young people got the opportunity to access the school's facilities for meetings and drama, dancing and performing arts, whatever you want to call it. That no longer happens. You got to pay a high amount of money in insurance in order to use the school's compound. If you want to use it for half of a year, a quarter of a year, $700 and some. So where are poor people going to get the money from? They're the ones who will populate our pavilions and our playing fields and our schools. That has stopped, Mr. Speaker. And it is heart-wrenching to see where our youth are going, and not all of our youth who get involved in crime are youth who are criminal-minded. But you know what? A man is known by the company he keeps. We're not reminding them of that. And however it is, there's no way that 5 young men or 3 young women and 2 young men or whatever can come together to say, let us rob that blind man. Somebody has to be strong enough to say, no, that is all he has. He can't see you, but he will know his voice, but it is wrong to rob him of whatever resources he has. Where is the training coming from? And again, our parenting skills are horrible. Nobody can tell me, a country girl, that mothers working are the causes for children not being attended to. We had that whole village, that whole community across the length and breadth of Barbados. It is still very active and strong in most rural parishes, and I believe, sir, in urban communities as well, where people share, they look out for the children, they supervise them after school, and the before and after school programs will help. The breakfast clubs are helping, but enough is not being done by those who can do better. And my biggest problem with most Barbadians, we have climbed that social ladder, you call it upward social mobility, and have forgotten from whence we have come. That too is adding, because when you bring up all of the brains and they move away, having known the culture, what their upbringing was, we need them to come back to the community. It's not necessary to live, because something that's impossible, but come back and walk to the young people and let them know the situation you are in today, I was too, with poverty. But if I have climbed the social ladder, it is because I capitalized on it. You need to go to school and learn. You need to go to school and pay the respect. You need to go to school and make sure that you don't walk the corridors every day, but that you conform with the rules, because when we were growing up, we never went with shoes to school. I went to primary school with no shoes on my feet. No school meals except the cold bakes from the night before. And I'm saying this because young people feel that we are all honorable members in here and that we've been born with gold spoons in our mouths. We need to go into the village and tell them from whence we have come, but because of good parents, wonderful neighbors, and excellent teachers and others in the community as role models, we have come thus far without any police record. And we will build this Barbados together, because that is what we must be doing now, not only here, but in our churches, in very other institutions across Barbados. The other thing I want to say, Mr. Speaker, sir, that the cultural penetration is what's taking a toll of our country too. And the drug culture is even worse. The only time when you people had tattoos and gold teeth were men who were seamen, because women could be seamen. The women stayed home and looked after the children, and they did it well, raising 10 and 15 children. But the tattoo culture now is a big thing. The brand name shoes, the bling bling, gold around their neck. A man in Orange Hill got killed about 3 years ago at a karaoke session, sitting. Big gold chain gone, and a life gone too over what? Jewelry that can be stolen, that if you have an earthquake, you can't find half or anything. If you have a tsunami, you can't find people fathom more jewelry. What is it worth? A life does not worth any jewelry, anything material. God has given us this life that we should live and live righteously. And we have got all those tenets and those moral values and so that help to tie us in as a set of human beings to know that we must love one another, for love is of God. The Bible expresses that in so many different ways. The Honourable Member for St. Michael West can tell us of and teach us lessons about it, because that is his role as a bishop. And I'm saying, why are we not instituting it in our homes? There's little or no parental control with this social mobility again. Every child has a room. Every child has a cell phone and a laptop or tablet or whatever. And in that room doing what he or she feels like doing. And then when we find out they have boyfriends in the bedroom and the parents don't even know the house is so big. Because the mentality is the biggest house, having the nicest of furniture and so on. But then the important things for social living are lacking because we have dropped the guard that we should have in raising our children and directing them. And I am sorry, Mr. Speaker. It is destroying us, and we're seeing it every day. But I want young people to know that money and riches are not all. Fancy clothes are not all. Fussy cars, because I see some fellas and some girls driving some fussy cars, Mr. Speaker. I'm still at Suzuki level, and I'm proud, because every time I turn the key, the engine starts up. But you see the Lexus, that's what it's called, because I'm not even familiar. The BMW, what's the other one? The Mercedes. And some fellas or girls and fellas, they call the same, never drove a stroke against the wind yet to earn a wage or a salary. But the biggest life you could ever want. And what hurts me more, the values are not trickling down to the children that they have. Because most of these men, Mr. Speaker, sir, that are in for these heinous crimes, a child or two, and then they tell the magistrate, but sir, my girlfriend pregnant, and I would like to go home with her, want bail. Mr. Speaker, you would know better than I. They only knew that they had a girlfriend and young children when they committed a heinous crime and injured somebody, killed them, whatever, then to know they got children. But their children have to live, and they must not become the scourges of society with people pointing the finger. He father is who they killed the man. And is he father is the ignorant boy that blew up this body? All kinds of madness. Parents have an integral role to play, Mr. Speaker, in turning this madness around. The money and the riches cannot work. Too many spoiled children are out there. Even in the supermarket, you see them facing or back in the trolley, going up the aisle. Any slip at all, child neck bread, you can't even say anything to the child. The child's neck is broken. The child's neck is broken. I know that the recording has to happen. We need stronger parental controls in order to take these people forward, these young people forward. We need family structures that are properly coordinated to help the parents. Paradox is not enough. It is too much of a Herculean task. But I believe that those three pillars in our society that work well for my generation, and that of the honourable member for St. Christchurch, St. Michael East, and that for the honourable member for St. George, and the honourable member for St. George North, I would consider ourselves the oldest persons in here. I believe that the structures that we can put in place can help us to turn what appears to be a Herculean task around. But the schools, the churches, and the rest of our communities are to come together again and coordinate and plan and deliver and offer the resources, because the government has spent billions of dollars over the past many years to ensure that we get free education, including school meals, including textbooks and revolving fund and so. And I am afraid but too many of our billions have gone out to sea because it has not been properly capitalized on by our people. I have a big beef with schools too, but I'm not going to stick to this now because the school business now would call for tremendous reform. Except for me to say, Mr. Speaker, sir, the curriculum reform project of 1996 is one of the best things that happened to Barbados, despite the high costs, because we were the ones that were setting the example and sharing our best practices with other of our brothers and sisters in the Caribbean. And today there is still about 90% of rote learning in our classrooms. Not all children will catch up on tables in mathematics. Not all of them will reason, because the kind of tuition I got, may the Lord continue to bless Lester Vaughan in his grave and his team at Holy Innocent School. We learned how to do mental arithmetic, so we had to be alert. We had to know the tables. Our parents taught us, but teachers took time out to teach us. Teaching happened in the school. A change now for textbooks, workbooks in particular, and each school has different workbooks. So if two children are in a household and one goes to one school, one goes to the other, the workbooks are different. So it is difficult for parents who have not been so well educated to be able to cope. And sometimes the textbooks and the exercise, the workbooks are never touched, Mr. Speaker. Can you imagine parents having to go to buy $300 in books every year for one school child? So if they have 4 children there, Mr. Speaker, you know. And therefore, the workbook scheme needs to be examined. If you're given one examination, the workbook should be across the board, so that everybody develops the skills and that teachers will teach, because I understand now that lessons is $25 sometimes and $75 per hour. $20 and $75 per hour to let children get extra assistance. They want the teaching in the classroom for all of us who have agreed. And we still have excellent teachers and principals most of the time, Mr. Speaker, sir. But there are too many deficiencies that are showing up, their ugly heads. There are young men and women who have excellent skills, but you know what? Everybody wants to get an older grammar school. I wouldn't even call a name because I'm tired of hearing it now. We have taken education and bastardized it. Unless you go to X school and you're in a fraternity, I know the arm member for St. Andrew, where he here. Yeah, up and on. I don't know the arm member for the city too. But up and on, and children go to school there and come out in second form and don't do anything either, like in the others. Something is wrong with the system. And for most of the schools at secondary level, we still have children who are big-time failures and become criminals too, as we are there bastardizing our newer secondary schools. That most of the teachers in our newer secondary schools went to newer secondary schools or private secondary schools in their time. We can make a difference, and the curriculum reform with the social and emotional learning, let the children talk about how they feel, how they're hurt if there's an accident, what happened, and the emotions coming through. That is what is necessary so that these young men and women can understand it is a hurtful thing for somebody to be injured, for somebody to be insulted, for somebody to curse. It is disrespectful to curse the police. It is the worst thing in the world to shoot somebody in an ambulance somewhere down in Deacons a few years back. A man got shot, the ambulance came, they sought to give him whatever necessary medical assistance until he could get to the hospital. And the fellow told the ambulance man, "Shift wrong, boss." Bang, bang. They go to the Queen Elizabeth Hospital and now have all of us, the poor people in Barbados, disenfranchised to walk around to the front of Martindale's Road instead of going through the north. Because one idiot chose to go to the hospital to shoot a man that was in the bed. And now a prison officer has to go to stand next to that person, or police officer, as a guard to make sure that nothing happens, especially if that person who has been shot is somebody known to the police.
Your Honourable member has
I'm going to wrap
2
up,
more.
Mr. Speaker, by saying we need more special needs programs for our children. We need more training resources for our parents and guardians. The late developers and the slow learners are suffering more than anybody else, and that is where we are seeing, if you do any analyses of those individuals who are now the major perpetrators according to what is happening, you can tell that they have a lot of deficiencies, especially when it comes to their speech and their understanding. I want, Mr. Speaker, as I come near to the close, to have some newer, some more teaching methodologies administered. And I want to just advise the young people out there, we love you dearly. And any mother, and I am a mother one time and then 4 more, and then all the rest of Barbados are my children. Any mother would tell them, any father of his worth will tell them, please stay on the straight and narrow. The Bible says, a good name is rather to be chosen, which is our goal. Nowadays, it seems as though the rude boys are the ones admired. A fellow will tell you, get rich or die trying, and put on a tattoo too. I want the young people to know, we too have come through poverty, worse poverty than any of them has. But we were able to work together as families, as communities, teachers working with us, church leaders, the best people working with us to help us to reach the level we are at, to build our character. For me, character is all. So I plead to the youth today, sir, put down the guns and pick up a trade. Pursue some studies, tithe your time, work with families, be an example for the rest of your community and your society. Work honestly for what you gain. Respect law and order. Be the change agents on the blocks. All the blocks and all persons on the blocks are not negative, sir. Some of them do help to guide the young people. And so I close by saying, Mr. Speaker, sir, it is not a badge of honor to go to prison. Fellows seem to think so until they get there. But Mr. Speaker, sir, you know how they cry and they moan. I want my daddy. I want to go get a drink. I got to wait till lunch. And they do it because they did not know what happens behind those walls. And the ones who know it and come back out and do silly things, they are the ones who are enticing our young people to go in and do nonsense. Life is precious, Mr. Speaker, sir. And therefore, I want them to respect life. We are going to support them when they try to do things with the Ministry of Youth Affairs, the Ministry of Culture. All the other ministries are working and have planned to pull things together that each of us can have a safe and prosperous life, but the negativity will take back. So I want to highly commend the persons in the constabulary, in the judiciary, those in the schools and the churches and faith-based institutions, those role models and others in our various communities across Barbados to continue to service this country well. We have made retrograde steps. When we hear about the killings, it drives the fear of the devil in everybody. Families on both sides, the perpetrators as well as those who are the victims, suffer as a result. Our going forward today, sir, is our people coming together and everybody's responsibility. Again, I am a strong supporter of the Bail Act and the measures through amnesty for us to be able to get those persons who have the guns and the ammunition and so to bring it in so that we can get on with the business. And I am extremely grateful to the Honourable Attorney General as well for strengthening the hands of the judiciary by providing more persons working at that level and giving the necessary resources to make a change. And I want to say, Mr. Speaker, sir, how proud I am today to be a part of this change that will help to ease the minds of Barbadians, and pray that when the ammunition comes in, that the police would hold it and that they will treat to it in a special way that I know they have over the years, and that whatever happens thereafter, Barbadians leave understanding and being reassured you can feel free to go to church and not have that kind of travesty that we saw a few weeks ago with a man killing 50 and 50 in hospital. That we can know we can go to town and shop, not like outside by Nara the other evening just before Christmas. We want to be safe in our spaces, and we are willing to work with the youth. Indeed I am. The Honourable Minister for Youth Affairs is, the Minister of Culture. We are all grassroots people who have achieved, and I want to thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me the time, but I will get my soapbox in St. Thomas, sir, where we'll go on the blocks and I work with my young people, because every life saved is a special life, and every individual in this country should be able to live at peace and in safety, as should our visitors. I wish to thank you sincerely, sir.
Honourable Member of the City of Bridgetown.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that the sitting be suspended for lunch until 2:30 p.m.
Beg to second.
Question is that this honourable chairman be suspended until 2:30 p.m. All those honourable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Meeting the ayes have it. This honourable chamber stands suspended until 2:30 p.m.